People that work on movie sets, what are the most entitled actors you have ever met? Also a TV set. James Corden is an absolute jackass. Not the funny happy-go-lucky guy you see on TV. My favorite James Corden moment was when Jimmy Kimmel won a round of Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts by asking Corden to name one cameraman in the room right now. Third hand here, so who knows? But a person I know has worked with Kevin Smith. During the filming of Live Free or Die Hard they were shooting Kevin scenes. I guess the call time was 7 AM. Everyone is ready. Lights on. Sound check. Yada yada. No Bruce Willis. Turns out he was at a nearby bar having mimosas. The aide that went to get him was told I'm John McClane. What are they gonna do? Fire me? Or something to that effect. To Kevin's estimation $90k-ish were wasted in pay, rental fees and whatnot waiting on Bruce to be ready to go. I was worried you were gonna say something bad about Kevin Smith cause he seems like a super cool dude in all the interviews I've seen of him. I used to work in the industry for a while. Asked some colleagues about the worst people they've worked with. More than one said Steven Seagal was a great douchebag. Another said Mike Myers was a nasty piece of work. From what I hear, Myers is really hard to work with because he is an extreme perfectionist and wants everything done the way he has it in his mind. I was playing a background doctor on an R-type drama a couple years ago. While rehearsing a scene, one of the actresses said to the performer next to me, "Tell him he can't stand there." She was referring to me. I adjusted my position and asked, "Is he okay?" She said. Again to the actor next to me, "Tell him I don't care. Just stay out of my way." I asked, "Is there some reason you're not addressing me directly?" And she turned around and walked away. A few minutes late the scene was shot without further incident. I have no idea who this actress is. She wasn't one of the stars. I have no idea who this actress is. Katherine Heigl Mayo. I went to school with a guy who wound up co-starring in a feature film. I saw him in the bar one night. He walked up to this table of women and said, "So, who wants my autograph?" He even had a pen. The women had no idea who he was because the movie he'd been in was some short-run B-movie nobody had even heard of. Insecure people who gain any sort of fame and recognition are the most cringy of all. I'm tempted to try this sometime. Just ask people if they want my autograph. If they ask who I am, I'll show them a little YouTube video. LOL. Not that it's any surprise to anyone, but Michael Cera is a huge fucking asshole. I watched so many young musicians come up to him during the Sex Bomb tour, come up to him to talk about music or gush about how he inspired them, only for him to either brush them off completely, ask them why they're talking to him, or just have security come take them away. Total dick. I always assumed that character of his in This Is the End was just a gag. LOL. Deleted. I saw an interview with him and when asked if he liked anime, he said something like, "Yep. Hentai too." Faye Dunaway. Faye Dunaway. And I cannot stress this enough. Faye Dunaway. I've had dealings with her personally and can vouch for her entitledness and nastiness. But my friend who works on movie sets has horror stories. Extremely demanding. And also picky. She brings her scales with her everywhere and will make anyone catering weigh it up in front of her. She has a no eye contact rule, which must never be disobeyed. And she also yells and screams when things do not go her way. Well, eye contact takes two to tango. So she can go suck a dick if she's not playing by her own rules. Deleted. Bam Margera used to frequent a mall where I was managing a store. He was always cool and never seemed pretentious. One afternoon he came in with some friends. And they were all obviously either high, drunk, or both. They were in my store, making a scene, being obnoxious, and started throwing around merchandise. Before I could say anything to them, Bam turned around and yelled for them to stop acting like fucking children and to put everything back where they got it. Like good little punes. They did what they were told. He just looked at me and with a long and tired look on his face told me he was sorry about them. So, yep, Bam seems to be a good guy. This is the biggest surprise in this whole thread. I try to remember that everyone has bad days, and good, and my interactions with people on a professional level can be just that, a bad day or a good day. But that being said, working with Jonathan Frakes was so wonderful that at the end of our time together, I nearly turned around and said I love you, Dad. Everything this kid who grew up wanting to be Commander Riker could hope for. My mom's friend did security for concerts. She always told us about how nice the bands were, but Adele was a nightmare. Her fans started to line up before her concert outside of the stadium, and Adele refused to do sound check because she didn't want anyone to hear her for free, and you couldn't look at her when she spoke to you. AC/DC was the nicest band she encountered, and the Foo Fighters. For some reason I thought Adele would be a nice person. Deleted. Consistently I've always heard Matt was a nice guy. Very genuine. It's always good to hear. Cause I love a lot of the movies he's been in. Bruce Vilanch demanded I serve him his Skittles while in my underwear. I was young and wanted to get into the industry, so I, regretfully, did it. My mom worked security for Kanye West and she said he was lovely. As was 50 Cent. Will Young was a knob. Not actors. I know. Kanye West is clearly the world's greatest troll. Had a good friend that was an extra on the set of The Prestige. They were told not to interact with Bale due to his method acting, but he witnessed a child of someone on the set playing X-Men figures with Hugh Jackman. Hugh was Magneto and the kid was Wolverine. That story doesn't make Bale a bad person. No extra should be interacting with talent unless the scene itself calls for it. Can you imagine being an actor and between every take all 400 background performers in a scene think it's appropriate to talk to you? It's a pretty reasonable ask to be left alone. As for the child of a crew member playing, crew is there every day for weeks, or months. That's a different relationship than a background actor who is there for a day. I used to work in the film and TV industry. Tyra Banks legitimately will fire some people if they look her in the eye when passing in the hallway. Mostly interns. Ugh. On the plus side, Tom Hanks and David Tennant are genuinely amazing. And Eric Dane. Good guy. Once an actress yelled at one of our new writers. And Eric heard about it. He later came by to apologize publicly in front of the whole cast and crew. Even though it wasn't his doing. Love that guy. And someone on the crew later tried to poison that actress. So, I love how no one even acknowledged the whole poison thing. Brian Callen, most famous from Mad TV, is a major douchebag. He had a meltdown and screamed at everyone because a pa didn't get his coffee fast enough. He gave me dirty looks during filming and I couldn't tell if he was into me or was pissed at me, but it made me uncomfortable. You must be full o' dents. My friend has worked on Dr. Phil for years. He has a no eye contact rule and is apparently one of the nastiest, most self-absorbed people in the industry. Dr. Phil must be sent to the ranch. I used to sit next to Billie Eilish in choir up until like less than 2 years ago when she really blew up. I saw her again when she came to one of our performances last year and she gave me a hug. Anyway, what's so weird to wrap my head around when I see her online or in interviews is that she's the exact same person that I knew her to be all my life. Weird. Quirky. Always sticking out her tongue and lifting her lips up to make weird faces. Always making fun of herself and others, in a playful way. But really down to earth. It's so weird seeing the person I sat next to for years literally copy and pasted onto such a high celebrity platform. I had a bit of a superiority-based idea of her. But I had to re-evaluate when she explained why she wears baggy clothes, and I watched a few interviews of her. She's so young. And so talented. And I have a lot of respect for her. I think she's brilliant. Not me and not on a set, but my mom was a cashier at a famous local inn and a number of celebrities have visited. Billy Ray Cyrus, Michael Jackson, etc. One day Bill Cosby had showed up and asked for a specific cup of coffee with a bunch of weird shit in it. Long story short, my mom politely said we don't have that. Got yelled at. And was basically forced to go buy his coffee from somewhere else just so management looks good. Edit. I should probably mention my mom saw a white woman on his bed. Weird shit in it. Did he have the right prescription for that? Worked in the business for about 10 years. I found that reality TV stars were the hardest to work with. I worked mostly with stars from Bravo and they were all entitled and horrible. Celebs I've met that were super nice. Rihanna. Mark Hamill. Tony Todd. Peter Dinklage. And Emmanuel Chikwari. I am requesting an AMA for the Bravo Housewives sub. Worst stories from Bravo. Any tea is appreciated. Even if it is ice cold. Shia LaBeouf. Shia is a real asshole. My brother worked with Lori Loughlin on a bunch of sets lately and she's apparently super nice. She followed him on Instagram until the whole college admissions thing. He badly cut his hand working on a project at home and when we were here, she sent him a long message just making sure he's okay, etc. I know that if this gets any comments at all, they'll be about paying to get her daughter into USC. But she's a solid person. And X200B. He also worked with John Bernthal and based on the stories from that set, he's a secret Keanu. I think that's what made the college incident so upsetting. She was so loved and known for her kindness and motherhood before the debacle. Kudos to you for looking at the good. Deleted. Carry her away. How her reminds me of that Chapel skit when he's playing Diddy. Not a movie set, but I work at a major music festival by driving the artists from stage to their campsites tour buses. Every single EDM group I have ever drove act like 35-year-old man children crossed with cringy neckbeards. They are all douchebags. Baz Nectar and Skrillex are the worst. I too work festivals. A couple large ones doing security, VIP coordination and the like. Wiz Khalifa? Dope Dude? Shaky Graves? I've seen Home Dude bartending at someone's toe behind Wet Bar. The front man of Cake though. That guy just acted like a tool. Cheers bud. I have a story I'm telling secondhand. This was in a hotel. Not a movie set. So sorry for breaking the rules. Apparently Sylvester Stallone had been angering the cleaning staff because he was leaving shit in the shower. When the manager complained to his people about this behavior, his publicist explained that they had to understand that Mr. Stallone was a very busy man. Too busy to sit on a fucking toilet. I know a guy who worked on the new movie coming out 21 Bridges. He said Chadwick Boseman was insufferable. On the other hand, he says J.K. Simmons was super friendly. I've heard the best way to get on J.K. Simmons' good side is to have pictures of Spider-Man. Tom Hanks. J.K. Dudesson. T. Hanks. I met John Cleese at a patent awards dinner in 2003 and I'm still disappointed in that experience. Because I only got to talk to him for a few minutes. He's even funnier in person. He told me he kept a set of the teeth he wore in Rat Race. Cleese complimented my beard at a meet and greet last year. He took my face in his hands and titled my head back and said your nasal hair hasn't even grown into your mustache. Family member works in the industry. Ben Stiller and John Cusack have been described as very entitled and exactly what you would expect from them. John Cusack tried to get in an elevator before I could get out once in Chicago. I was 13 and told him to move or something in a really shitty teenager tone. My older brother told me loudly that was John Cusack. So I just as loudly proclaimed, "Who's John Cusack?" before I got off the elevator. I'd like to think he learned his elevator etiquette. But I'm not sure after reading these. Either way, we were all pricks in this situation. I still don't like him though. A professor of mine's sister met Jeff Goldblum in lab. And he got her number. Apparently he called her once at 4 a.m. to talk about snow. That was the only time they spoke. My prof worked with Goldblum once. Said he was one of the nicest men he's ever met. He made my prof tap dance with him on set apparently. Most of the entitled people I have worked with were not famous enough to remember their names. All the A-list celebs I have worked closely with have been great. But it's those that are either up and coming or not going up at all that are the little shits. I've worked on a few movies and Ed Helms was the only person I've worked with that was a goddamn dismissive asshole. If you were a crew member you weren't allowed to even talk to him, and if anyone said anything to him even out of human kindness like "excuse me" or "is this your car," he would act all pained and roll his eyes. A girl somehow found our offices and mailed us a fan letter with a picture she's bought of him and a press-dressed return envelope. It was a super sweet letter and the picture would have taken him 5 seconds to sign, but a pa read it to him and asked what he wanted to do and he said just put that wherever you put things and didn't sign it. And it was for a stupid romantic comedy that ended up being terrible. Sorry for bothering you with my friendship. I met Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom at a Pirates premiere. I'm a nobody and Johnny Depp treated me as such. Didn't talk to a single person and had security around him the whole time. Not the best impression. But Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley were really kind. Orlando Bloom even took my phone from me to get that perfect selfie angle, his words. I didn't even ask for a picture, haha, so kind. Not an actor but a director. David Fincher. He is a pain to work with and he is beyond eccentric. Did some work as an audio production assistant, for a while. If anyone wore anything red on his set they were fired on the spot. I work in the music industry now. And one of the best people to work with is Garth Brooks. He's very laid back and incredibly humble. Treats everyone from the top down with the utmost respect. At a video game company I worked at back in the early mid-2000s. Before a meeting to go over some potential deals. Tom Cruise's handler people told us to set up this big spread of treats, food, and several different kids of water in blue bottles only, back when this was a thing. When Mr. Cruise came to the office he was super polite, friendly, creative, intelligent. I was expecting strangeness and absurdity. We were all pleasantly surprised. It's good to hear this. I've heard he can sometimes be a bit weird. But I've never heard he's an asshole, like Seagal. Chris Pratt is as nice and funny as they come. Treats everyone with the same genuine respect. I spent hours with him on a gym bleacher watching wrestling and he treated everyone including me as if we were all close workmates. I love knowing this. He seems like a great guy. Know someone that is close to Robert Downey Jr. Downey is a really nice guy that is super focused on his family. This guy can pick who he works with and has been with Downey a few years now and says he's one of the best guys in Hollywood. Sheryl Crow and Bill Maher are the only people I've heard him say are just awful. I've asked about the Avengers and he said overall they're nice. Not entitled. But I was an extra on God's Not Dead. The classroom scene was sweltering because of all the lights. Me and some other friends were pretty miserable and all of a sudden we hear wow. It's hot back here and turn around to see Kevin Sorbo. He ended up talking with us for about 15-20 minutes before he had to get back to work. Super chill dude who seemed very much like a normal person. 10/10 would chill with Hercules again. Disappointed. My brother is in the Detroit Film Workers Union, not sure of the proper name. He's worked on some big name projects when the studios in Pontiac were in full swing. Hostel 3. Oz. Batman vs Superman to name a few. He didn't get to interact with many actors or actresses in the big studios. But he was in an old theater in Detroit and had an interesting run-in. Filming was on a break and he went exploring. Found an old piano and started playing away. About 30 minutes later he got up to leave and Carrie Elwes was standing behind him. Carrie apparently heard the sound and went searching for it. Finding my brother. They talked for a while. Ended up going out to dinner and still stay in contact to this day. I've never met the man but from what I've heard he's a pretty awesome guy. That makes me so happy to hear that Carrie Elwes is a good dude. I've loved him since I was in 2nd grade. The Princess Bride is my favorite movie of all time. A friend of a friend used to date Benedict Cumberbatch back in 2010. When he was just getting well known for Sherlock and other things. Apparently he was a self-important douchebag. But I don't know their relationship. Or what she was like as a person any more than I know him as a person. I met him in 2013 I want to say. We were at a dive bar on the central coast of California. And we saw this guy who looked eerily like Benedict Cumberbatch. We weren't sure but we kept looking. He was talking to these two women. He nodded at us. And eventually went inside. The bar has an outdoor area. My friend followed him in. Asked him quietly if he was who we thought. He said yes but asked to keep it quiet. He came out. Chatted with us for 10 minutes. And took a picture with another friend. She's basically in love with him haha. He was down to earth and easy to talk to. Perhaps it was just he'd had a beer or two. I wonder if celebrities ever read through these threads. I mean, occasionally celebrities who go on Reddit poke their heads out if they're mentioned. A few years ago someone talked about how as a kid he won one of those things to hang out with Dylan and Cole Sprouse and said they were kind of douchey. One of them, Dylan I think, actually popped up and apologized for his behavior. Citing youthful stupidity among other things. Thought that was pretty nice. I used to be in a clan on BF with some dudes who worked in the production side. The number one worst person they met was Scott Eastwood. Do you know who I am was his favorite thing to say to people. Apparently George Lucas' son told him off at a gala event. Row. Good on Lucas Jr. I remember Scott Eastwood was in the running for Solo back when casting was in full swing. I'm glad he didn't get it now. I got hired in for 4 days for a Netflix original film and Chris Pine was a massive douchebag. All the crew were completely fed up with him. Or not the best Chris then. Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones is a Danish actor called Pillow Asbak. He's rising in fame with roles in movies like Ghost in a Shell, and I've met him several times because we have a friend in common and he is just the coolest person on the planet. You don't realize he's acted with Scarlett Johansson when you're talking. He's just so genuine and I'm inviting him to my wedding for sure. He is an amazing Danish actor. Finally getting the fame he deserves. David Suzuki. Not an actor. But public personality anyway. Next time I see him I will cross the street to avoid him. As would many people I know who have also dealt with him. To be fair, I'd probably be just as miserable as he is if I had dedicated my entire life to saving the environment, and this is how it's all playing out. He made my mom just about cry. So there's that. We saw him shopping for toothbrushes at London Drugs and I encouraged her to go say hi since she was such a big fan. She approached him. Said, "Excuse me. Are you David Suzuki?" He stared at her with a look of disgust for about 10 seconds. Rolled his eyes. Said yes and pushed past her. Just walked away. She's vowed never to watch The Nature of Things again. Ali Lata tried to push my sister down some stairs when they were filming Final Destination. She was an extra in the Paris, Victoria, BC, scenes and apparently Ali didn't like her flirting with Devin Sawa. The entitled part is when she sat down for lunch, lifted her hair and let out a loud ahem. She wanted someone to come remove her jacket. I witnessed that part. My buddy flew Ben Affleck around. Said he was cool just chill. He's chilled out a ton as he got older. But apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger was an entitled arsehole when he was younger. My dad was in line at a club which Arnold tried to cut in front of, then got all "don't you know who I am?" Imagine the accent, and started threatening the doorman. Then like 5 minutes later James Woods came up and did the same exact thing. They stood there refusing to line up with everyone else looking pissed and threatening the doorman with various things. Doorman never budged and my dad gave him a high five when it was his turn to go it. A friend of mine from college asked her pa sister the same question. Then in turn my friend told our group. Friend's sister told her that Edward Norton was the biggest, whiniest baby she'd ever had to deal with and she would turn down a job in the future if she found out she'd have to work with him. Again. This is fourth hand. But I guess he would throw tantrums at least daily over nothing. This is kind of the opposite of the point of the post, but it feels like a good place to share. I was a featured extra on set for Foxcatcher, one of the Olympic scenes. Bennett Miller kept reshooting and it turned into a really long day. Not sure how common that is, but needless to say people were getting worn out by the 10-hour mark. Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum went out of their way just to take some time and thank everyone for being there and genuinely seemed like really nice guys. The only person who didn't have anything to say was surprisingly Steve Carell. But I chalk that up to him going method and trying to get in the mindset of DuPont. Mark Ruffalo really seems like he is a very nice guy. Ron Jeremy will grab anyone's tits. Even the intern who is just setting the table with bottles of water. I can't give my sources. But the entire female cast of ours is an absolute honor to work with. Gaga, Cera, and Kathy specifically are just the sweetest ladies you could dream of working with. Gaga asks that you call her Stephanie. And will personally check in with her co-stars between shoots to make sure they're okay with continuing if the scene is sexual or aggressive in nature. Kathy is the sweet auntie you'd imagine her to be. And Sarah's everyone's own personal cheerleader. Jessica could be a little distant at times. But in downtime, she was good as gold. She had her ways of making sure you knew she appreciated you being a part of the project. Even if at the smallest levels. I read this as absolute horror and then thought everything was sarcastic on the first read-through. Kevin Bacon is a sweetheart. And gave me the ability to gift everyone I know with a 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. Not a movie set. But oddly, John Delancey has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when it comes to professional work. But was very tolerant and charming among fans from what I observed in the half hour or so I got to hang around him. Met him at a con. He was clearly exhausted but very gracious. Not a movie set. But shared a green room with Bill O'Reilly many years ago. He was an absolute gigantic turd to his staff and everyone around him. Like not just demanding or impatient, but insulting and berating. He appeared to get off making them feel like dirt. Most industry stars you work with are awesome. They appreciate that fans make them what they are. And they are, or at least act, genuinely grateful for the life it gives them. I do have to disagree with the above comments on Mike Myers, as the couple of times I bumped into him in a professional environment he was quiet offset but very friendly. Not an actor, but a musician. Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden, is a deadbeat. Won't say how I know them BC, I'm not trying to dox myself, but the gist of it is, he had sex with a 16-year-old at a concert. Said 16-year-old gave birth to his daughter, who is now an adult. He knew this, and did jack shit to help. Won't even acknowledge her as his offspring. Her and her mother struggled very hard financially for years and he could have at least assisted. My view of him is very skewed because of that. Yes, they are sure she's his. I've posted this before. My BF works in the movie studios and concerts where we live and has done small to major movies and met some pretty big movie stars because of it. Johnny Depp, Jason Momoa, Chris Hemsworth, Matt Damon etc. The worst person he's ever had to deal with was Blake Lively. Said she was the most entitled, snobby and rude person to deal with, through tantrums on set, and she treated literally every single person like a pose except for the director. Said if there's another movie and she's in it, he will refuse. Other than her, every other star he's dealt with he's said are pretty easygoing, chilled out, and will talk to literally anyone if you don't make a huge fuss about them. Everyone from my area is nice. Didn't work on movie sets but met people. MC are all super nice. Just dudes who fell into music and fame and art. Justin Guarini, nicest guy alive. By the way, you know those Dr. Pepper commercials with Lil Sweet? Yeah, that him. M. Night Shyamalan, chill dude. Bit out there. McAvoy said hi to me. I said hi back. Bam Margera helped a friend of mine out with a coffee when low on money. Now why am I saying all these nice things when this thread is about entitlement? Because fuck Woody Allen. Friend of mine worked on the most recent Pirates film. Apparently you get everything ready every day. Then just sit around and see if Johnny Depp decides to show up. He often didn't. Oh, and that time he went in character to the Queensland Children's Hospital, formerly Lady Salento Children's Hospital. Not pre-arranged. He just showed up and an entire hospital had to adjust their day so to work around him. Not movie stars. But David Boreanaz Caruso and Lorraine Bracco all came off as horrible human beings when I worked with them. Oh, Peter Weller. Worked with him on a couple of occasions and oh my god, what an asshole. Not just an asshole, but an asshole in such a way that he makes a big show of being an asshole. Sylvester Stallone is a complete self-absorbed cunt. If I ever saw him drowning, I would throw rocks at him. Same goes for James Cameron. From a friend who's a movie director. Daniel Radcliffe, really down to earth and genuinely nice guy. Michelle Williams, incredibly difficult to work with. Once made them reshoot the scene 4 times because her hands looked ugly. Russell Crowe, super arrogant and self-important. Keira Knightley, nice and quite down to earth but rather demanding. Back in my days of doing background work, I specifically remember on the set of Bones where they had very specific rules about not looking David Boreanaz in the eye and to keep a distance from him. You would hear stories about extras who would just walk by him, look up and smile, and then they would immediately get fired and sent home. No other set I worked on had that strict rules about their lead talent. If we're also doing TV people, Richard Hammond is one of the worst humans in TV. Suffers from small man syndrome and is a total spiteful dick to everyone. He's worse than Clarkson. James May, however, is a lovely, polite gent. Tommy Wiseau is banned from a movie theater that puts on The Room every month. He's amazing to his fans but a total arsehole to everyone working near him and springs last-minute demands on everyone. Have met Greg Sestero at the same movie theater though, and he is so funny and extremely nice and patient with his fans. I believe his relationship with Tommy now is the same as it was during The Room, as was documented in The Disaster Artist. I grew up in Kelly Clarkson's hometown and my mom and sister ran into her at Walmart at like 11 p.m. a couple years after she won American Idol and she was with a friend shopping for DVDs. She apparently had a cart full of them and was just laughing around with her friend and smiled and waved at my mom and sister. My friend was a manager at a bar music venue and met Jeff Bridges when he was playing there while promoting his country movie. She said he was so nice, and even helped her and staff move tables around. Kinda late, but my mom runs into Sandra Bullock like often when she's in Austin. She's had to have run into her randomly at least a dozen times since we moved to Austin when I was younger. From what I can tell, she's super chill. And she always remembers my mom when she sees her. I work in TV film now and I don't have many horror stories thankfully, but some friends do. I'm sure this isn't super shocking, but Shia LaBeouf is a huge asshole. When he was filming the first Transformers, a friend of mine worked in a yogurt shop in downtown Chicago. There was a huge line, but Shia and some girl he was with cut right to the front. My friend prepped his order, gave it to him, and he responded, "Do I really have to pay for this?" When she said yeah, he threw the money at her and walked off.